Welcome, welcome everyone. Welcome to Kitchen Table Creativity. I'm Donna Leffler, and today I have a fun and happy project. It is for Father's Day. As you can see, I have a baseball mitt. Baseball is a super fun pastime for so many people here in the United States. We love our baseball, and it's good for families. It's good to connect with dads with their kids. And so today I'm going to paint this for Father's Day, but you could always put something else on the flag instead of Happy Father's Day. You could put Happy Birthday. You could put someone's name or some little saying, whatever you want to do with this. And that it's a really versatile project. So I'm going to paint in my journal. If you want to paint yours on a card, that would be totally great too. I like painting in my journal because I can always tear it out, cut it out, put it on a card, or just write on the back if I want to. All right, so today I'm so excited because I'm working with my brand new color palette that I have come up with. And so I've been working on this for quite a long time. This is Daniel Smith Paints, and I'm working on a signature look and signature color palette. My look is called Scandinavian Folk Art, and it's just fun, it's happy, it's joyful, and I just really love that. So I'm going to be focusing on that for most of my projects from this point on. Now, you know, as I grow as an artist, it might change, and that's totally fine. But for now, I just love the simplicity. I love that it's easy for beginners. I love to teach it. And most of all, it makes me happy. So find things that make you happy to paint, and you'll always want to sit down and just have that time for yourself where you enjoy what you're doing. All right, so I'm going to show you. I have this palette, and these are my signature colors now. There's, I think, about 17 of them. Now, I'm really excited because I can reuse these over and over. I don't have to necessarily clean every single time the palette off with brand new colors. And so that it looks really messy, but I can always spray this with water and reuse these paints and keep using them. Now today, I'm just going to use 5 colors like I always do. So I'm going to kind of move this out of the way. And I'm going to move in my clean palette. So let me just go really quickly over the materials that I'm going to use. First, I'm going to show you what I did with this color palette. I have all my colors in here. They were in tubes, and so I put them into pans, and I actually created an entire video for you showing how to do this yourself if you want, including a swatch card with all the colors. So today, the colors I'm going to use this red, this yellow, this green, this purple, and this sort of reddish brownish color. So I'm going to take 5 of those out of this tin, and I'm going to just use those 5 colors. Now I have my image, and then I have a really nice traceable that I've created for you. You can print it out, cut it out like I have, take a piece of graphite paper and put it the dark side down, put this over it, center it, use a stylus to trace it. And you don't have to trace every single thing. Like if you want to just leave these little dots off, change anything on here, like I said, you could change what's on the flag. You could totally do that, or you can just trace it as is. And I have a nice ceramic palette here. I have 2 brushes I'm going to use, a smaller one and a bigger one, both round brushes. These are by Life Design. One is a number 1, the small one, which I'll probably use mostly because it's a small project, and the other one I think is a number 5, it says. But like I always say, these brush sizes, the numbers are different depending on the brand. So most of the time I just go by the look of what I'm working on and what I want to use. Then I'm going to use probably these 2 micron fine tip pens, which are permanent black ink, an 05 and an 005. I always use the 005 to sign my name. It's a very small fine tip. Might use the Sharpie paint pen, which is white, because the baseball is white. I will see how that goes. I might or might not use that. Let's see. I have my 3 jars of water here. I have a paper towel for blotting. And I always use 3 jars of water because I like to rinse my brushes really, really well so I don't have to keep getting up and, getting clean water all the time. So I am ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and trace this image, and I will be right back. Okay, so I have my image traced now on my watercolor paper, and I always say tracing is totally fine. Some people might disagree with me, but especially when you're just beginning, it's so much easier to just have the image already centered on your paper. You don't have to keep erasing and trying to draw something that feels like it's just not working for you. So by all means, trace your image if you feel like you want to do that. And I have a PDF that looks like this that you can print out and use to trace using graphite paper. Alrighty, so I have my paints here. I've removed them from the tin and I sprayed them with water. It's another thing, it's good to have a little spray bottle so you can spray just pure clean water onto your paints and get them ready to be used. So I always say that it's good to start with the lightest color. So I'm going to start also with my brush that's the small one, the number 1. And we're going to start with the yellow. And so I'm just going to move these other paints kind of out of the way. And my yellow is nice and ready, not too wet, but just enough water. So I'm gonna just start with the sun. And, you know, I might do a little bit of mixing if I decide I need that. And a lot of times, whatever I do with my painting is because, you know, I had this idea, thought it would turn out that way, and it just didn't. So I kind of just go with, you know, however it's working. But one rule of thumb, that it's always good to start with the lightest colors, and I found that that way, if you want it darker, you can always layer over it. But it's much harder to lift color off that's too dark. And so I'm going to take this, and I might add a little bit of that brownish. I like to try to stay with the 5 colors just to keep it more simple. Especially when you're starting, you know, I don't think it's good to jump into using 17 colors right away, because you need to have some feeling of progress or some feeling like I'm moving forward. This is working for me. It looks good. Now, I usually don't paint the centers of the flowers until I get the other parts done on that, so I'm going to leave those centers as they are for right now, and I'll come back with the yellow again. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that darker, well, first I'm going to rinse my brush really well. And I use the 3 jars. Like the first jar gets pretty dirty. I always rinse it when it's full of paint in that one. The second jar, then I move it into that one, and that's a little bit dirty. And then usually the third jar stays pretty clean, kind of surprisingly. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to work on that baseball glove. But you can see it's very dark. So I can do a couple of things now. I can take it and just keep watering it down, making it lighter and lighter. And another thing I forgot to mention, I like to have a scrap piece of watercolor paper just to kind of test and see. And that's pretty okay, but I think I'm going to add some yellow to that too. So I'm just going to grab some of the yellow that I already have here. And it's also a good rule of thumb to add darker to lighter instead of light to dark, because you'll find it's much easier to mix paint when you're adding just a touch of the darker one. And I think that that is a little bit too yellow, so I might go with this one. And that looks like a good color to me for the baseball glove, so I'm going to go with this little bit darker color. So for the baseball itself, I'm just going to leave it white. I'm not going to, at this point, I'm not going to add white to it. And I'm not going to, you know, try to make it stand out, because even though the watercolor paper looks kind of yellowish, things appear white once you get your other colors on. So I don't probably need to paint that at all. And I have a feeling this is going to be a pretty quick project, which is great. I really like making cards that are quick and easy, because sometimes, you know, I have someone's birthday and maybe I kind of forgot and I don't even have time to go out and get a card. And I'm finding more and more and more that just painting cards is just great, because not only do I love doing it, people love receiving them. And cards are so expensive now, and I think most of the time people just throw them out. I mean, you can save so many, but we all have so much stuff. I don't think most people save a lot of their cards. I don't know, I can't. Just don't have the space for it. But I'll tell you, if someone paints me a card, I'm going to keep it. And I could always frame it. I could keep it in a scrapbook, put it on my desk, and have something beautiful to look at. So I think it's really important to think about these things, and that our art can make people really happy. And that's really my goal with what I'm doing with this art, is it makes me happy. I hope it makes other people happy, and why I'm gravitating more and more towards this kind of whimsical folk art. And like I said, because it's just so much more simple than so many other forms of art. All right, so now I'm going to kind of just leave this as it is, and I'm going to come back and add probably a little bit more darker shadows to the glove itself. But for now, I'm going to leave this as it is, let it dry, and I'm going to move on to the flag. So I'm going to use this red for the flag, and this is a really bright red. So I'm going to water it way, way down, and I want it to be almost pink, maybe a little bit darker. I really don't want anything that really stark red in this. I'm going to keep it just very light. And while you're doing this flag, you really don't have to worry about painting over the words, because they'll show through. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back with my fine tip black pen, and I'm going to write over the words so they stand out. And I might need a little more paint here. Now I'm continuing to use my small brush. If you wanted to, you could switch to a little bit bigger brush, because it's a little bit bigger. But it's probably just me, but I really like using a small brush to get around the lines easier, because when you have a fatter brush, you can always hold your round brush up like this. And even if it's a big brush, it's going to have just the very tip touching. But I found it's just easier for me to stay with the small brush, not keep switching. I probably will use the bigger one for the grass. So the inspiration for this project today, I was thinking about, well, it's Father's Day, and I love to make things for the seasons and stay with seasonal type stuff. And I'm married, I have children, so we do celebrate Father's Day, and I know not everyone is in that situation. That's why I always say you can modify the project. You don't have to have it say Father's Day. You can have it say happy birthday, or anybody who enjoys baseball. So the inspiration for this really came because I was thinking about my dad, who has passed, and he loved a lot of different sports, but it seemed like baseball was definitely one of the ones that he would regularly watch. The Detroit Tigers. I grew up in Michigan. That was his favorite team. And at the end of his life, I spent some time with him. And one of the best games came on that have ever come on. It was just an amazing Detroit Tigers game, and I don't really love baseball myself, but I will watch it. I find it's kind of slow. I'm really a tennis player, and I'd rather watch tennis. But at that day, I was with my dad, and we were watching this game. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about this at this time, that it's a little bit lighter in the middle. I kind of want it to vary a little bit in intensity, so I'm going to leave that as it is. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to grab a little bit more of this. And I forgot I wanted to paint this flagpole this color. This brownish color. All right, so next I'm gonna use the purple. And I'm gonna probably use this straight as it is. I want it to be kind of dark. This purple color that I chose is very purple, and it's very dark. It's very intensely pigmented. So I have it watered down a little bit. Now, another thing, you can use whatever paints you have, whatever colors you have. You really don't have to stay with exactly what I'm using. If you want to start to invest in the Daniel Smith paints, they are really great quality. They are not inexpensive, but they're not really over the top, which is why I give 5 colors. And you could just start there. You can add 2, and I'm going to be using the same colors for my many of my palettes. So that way, or many of the projects that I'm going to be teaching. And so you can start, just with getting a few paints, or just use whatever you have, which is totally fine. You don't have to invest a lot of money with watercolor, and usually I don't even recommend people do until they decide they really enjoy it. I just absolutely love it, and I plan to keep painting for as long as my eyesight is good and I can continue to have a steady hand. So God willing, I will keep painting for many years, which I would absolutely love to do. And when you're painting these, don't worry too much if you go out of the lines either, because outside of the lines, because you can always come back with the fine tip black pen and do some outlining, which I love to do. It just makes things so much more forgiving. And I forgot to mention also, make sure to rinse your brushes really well in between these, switching between these colors. Okay, so rinsing again, and I'm gonna go back to this red, and I kind of want these flowers to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to start with just kind of the same pink color. And today is trash day. So they are picking up the trash. The big truck is coming by. You might be able to hear it in the background. I work out of my house. And I just want to encourage people, work with whatever you have, wherever you have, keep it casual. I get up now in the morning, I get my coffee, I get my puppy Ollie up, and usually he doesn't like to eat a whole lot right away, so I give him a bone, and he chews on his bone, and I sit down and I paint something new, something that maybe it's a bigger project that I have out, and I just leave it on my kitchen table, and I come back to it in the mornings. And I have an app called Hallow that I like to listen to some prayers. So I turn that on, and it's just like my time. It's so simple, and it makes me happy. So as long as I have this red, I'm gonna probably add a few more shadow or darker areas to this flag to make it just a little more interesting. The thing with watercolors, you can add layers. You can have lighter and darker areas. There's really no right or wrong. And I always say these projects I do, I just come up with them and I record these videos. Like, I don't practice ahead of time, so I just never know. Like, things might turn out different than what I had planned. And I try not to worry too much about that. I mean, I suppose if it someday I do want it, it's a complete disaster, I might not use it, but I haven't had that happen yet. Some of them come out like not exactly like as good as I wanted maybe, but that's what I want to show you, is that I'm not perfect. I don't think there's anybody who is when it comes to art. It's just like perfection is not the goal. It's just completing projects, moving forward, and continuing to paint. And like I said, it needs to bring you joy. Brings you joy, that's a really great thing. So now I'm going to move into the green. And I'm kind of running out of space here on my palette. So usually I like to use the one that I have that I showed at the beginning with all those tons of different paints on it now, and I might have to get another one of those because I love the size of it, the way that it works. So as you continue to paint, you will gravitate towards certain things probably also. Sometimes I can't even really say why. All right, so now I'm going to do the leaves and the stems on these flowers. And I've just loaded up my brush with this dark green. And again, test it on some paper. You'll be able to see the content of water to paint by testing it. And this is just a very, very light touch. And I wanted these to be a little bit darker than the grass is going to be, so they stand out. So I'm going to be doing a free watercolor painting class every month now. I also have a creative circle, which will be a paid membership, very low cost, but it's going to be weekly. But I'm always going to do a free class so that I can have new people who are just starting come on. It's all online, so you don't have to go anywhere. You can just stay at your kitchen table. And I will put a link also in the description if you want to sign up for that. It's totally free, and I have one coming up next week. I think it's June 24th, and if you missed that one, I'm going to be updating the page each month with the next date. So there will be one in July, there will be one in August. So if you miss the free one, you can always sign up for the next one that's coming up. All right, so I like the way that looks, and now I'm going to dilute the green way down, and I'm going to switch to my bigger brush. And what I'm going to do here is just what I call a wash. This would be hard to do with a really small brush, so a little bit bigger brush is much better. And I'm going to test it again. That looks great. Might have to add more water. And so what you want to do with this is you just kind of want to carry your brush across the page. Should be kind of watery. And this is really nice to have different, you know, like a little bit darker at the top maybe. And it's really nice to have different hues of the green or of whatever color you're using when you're doing like a background wash like this. You could carry this all the way to the end of the page, or you could just end it. I like to kind of fade it out usually. Kind of fade it with more, just add pure water so it doesn't have like a line at the bottom. It's just kind of fading away. So if you want to sign up for my email list too, I have a journal that I do every single, a creative journal. It's more creative inspiration, and I give that for free. It's like a digital flip book, and I make that every week and I send it out. This next one will have this in PDF form, so you can go in there and see it step by step instead of watching the whole video. Links to this video also, and just a lot of other like little stories and things that I have come up with for the week. And it's all seasonal, totally free. It's a digital flip book, and you can sign up for that in the description. And when you sign up, you will also get a free step-by-step tutorial of some adorable birds that I've created. All right, so I think I am pretty much done with the green for now. I'm going to let this dry for a bit. So the next thing I'm going to do is the centers. I'm going to go back to this paint, just wet it. It's dried already, but still totally workable. And I'm going to use this for the centers of these flowers. So they're nice and dry. Make sure that your flowers are dry before you go back and do this step, because they will run together. You know, sometimes when that happens though, it actually turns out really beautiful, so I wouldn't even really worry so much about it if that happens. And I'm going to take a little bit of this too and add a little bit more to the sun to give it a little more depth. Sometimes when we have a solid color, excuse me, it just looks a little flat. Sometimes I like to add a little bit of layers. Don't have to, but again, whatever speaks to your heart, go ahead and do that. Now for these little ones that are already yellow, I'm going to add this little bit darker. This is what I used for the baseball mitt, and it's still pretty dark for the centers. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go back and start adding some details. So first of all, I want to take some of this red again, this very dark red, and I'm going to keep it very intense. This is the only red, like true red, I'm going to have in this picture. And what I wanted to do is make this stitching red on the ball. So I'm just barely touching it. Very fine line. Okay, now I'm going to let that sit and dry. rinse my brush really well. I'm going to go back and I'm going to get a little more of this green. Keep it very dark. So these are more like concentrated colors that with things that I want to stand out more. So I'm going to go back on the grass and just add these little sprigs. Maybe I'll put one more here. Okay, I'm just kind of taking a step back now and seeing, is there anything else that I want to add to this? And I know I can probably now even go back in that short of time to the red and add the stitching in, the little cross stitches on the ball. But I'm going to remove the water from my brush because I wanted it to be very concentrated. And I'm going to add the stitching on the ball. Very fine detail. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. Now, I don't really see anything that I would like to change at this point with paint. Well, there is actually one little thing. I think what I'm going to do is add a little bit more color to these flowers. Not a whole lot, just enough to add a little bit of detail. Now I'm gonna just take some plain water in my brush and kind of blend this a little bit so there's not such hard edges. And I'm going to do the same thing with the purple. So I might give this to my husband for Father's Day. He likes baseball, but he's not like totally crazy about it, but I think he would appreciate that I painted it for him. All right. And the rest of the detail, on the glove, I'm just going to use the black pen for the stitching rather than brown. You could use a brown, but I think I would prefer to use the pen for that. And there are some little dots in the grass that I think I'm going to use for white, but for now, I think I'm just going to add a little more shadow to this grass. Like if the sun was shining, the shadow would be probably underneath this baseball mitt. So I'm writing this week in the journal about my dad and the last days that I spent with him and how really important that time was to me. So you might be able to relate to some of this because I know many of us have lost our parents and it's not an easy thing to go through. And I think even just the creative process of painting really helps with that kind of emotional thing. Okay, so I like the way this has turned out now, and I'm going to move into using the black pen now to add the detail. So for this last step, I like to use the Micron pens. They're my favorite. This is a 05, and this step is kind of optional. You don't have to do it, but I like to do it because I just think it makes everything come to life. So first of all, make sure that everything is really dry. The only thing I'm a little bit thinking, the stitches on the baseball might not be totally dry yet, but that's totally fine because I'm not going to start there. I'm going to start at the top here. And to do this, you just take your pen and start to outline as if you're sketching this, as if you were drawing it, and use like a sketching motion. And you kind of want these to just be like short lines so that they're not really rigid, so it looks like you drew it. This is called watercolor sketching. It also helps if there's something that you weren't super happy the way it came out. When you go ahead and do this kind of detail to it, it can kind of hide anything that maybe was a flaw that you feel like wasn't exactly how you wanted it to be. And like for the stitching or even the Happy Father's Day, that'll be kind of hard to do with a fine tip brush, but you could do it. And if you feel up to doing that, by just, of course, do it. But for me, I feel like I can get it done faster and easier just by using the fine tip pen. And you can also get different colors if you want to not just use black. I usually just stay with black. And I find this is just sort of almost a therapeutic kind of process for me. And you can see we didn't add any white paint to the ball, and it looks pretty white. So I don't think I'm going to have to add any white pen to that. And you don't have to really worry so much about it everything turning out perfectly straight. It's a little bit crooked. That makes it look homemade. So don't worry. Does not have to be. We are not striving for perfection. We're striving for moving forward, for completing projects, for feeling a sense of accomplishment, and for just the therapeutic process of that. So now I've been kind of experimenting with different ways of outlining, and sometimes I outline everything, and sometimes I leave some things, sometimes I just add a little bit of detail. Like I don't think I'm going to trace these stems. I'm just going to add a little bit, a few little marks, and I'm going to leave the grass the way it is. So kind of, this is sort of like the creative process where you're just going to use your judgment. And I also think I'm just going to leave the hill the way it is. I don't really want to add a dark line to that. So the last thing I have here now is just the Happy Father's Day. Make sure it's really dry. It's also nice to have something already traced like this. If you have beautiful handwriting, then that is a wonderful thing. And I think I'm just too impatient lots of times. I don't know. I can paint, but when it comes to handwriting, lots of times I just find myself kind of scribbling, which is, I mean, it's also an art form. So that's something that I would love to practice. And I think I'm just going to color this in black. It's a little heart. I always try to add a little heart to all of my work. It's kind of my signature thing. Mind Your Heart Studio. Okay, so, now I'm taking a step back here and I'm just kind of looking at everything, and I can see how the black is really pretty heavy at the top of this with the heart, with the flag outlined. And so I think what I would like to do is add a little more. I am going to add a little more to this hillside because I want it to be a little bit darker at the bottom so that it kind of anchors the whole thing. It's better to have heavier things towards the bottom. And so I'm also going to outline these, or add to, I should say, not really outline. Yeah, I like that better. And see how it kind of brings more weight to the bottom part of this so that it feels anchored. Otherwise, it feels kind of like it's floating, if that makes sense. All right, now I'm kind of looking at everything again. I like the way this has turned out. It's very colorful. And I always say that you need to sign your work. So take a 005 micron pen or whatever size you have. And I have a signature mark, which is just my initials. I almost always sign in the lower right hand. But even if you're giving it as a card, go ahead and sign it, because that shows it's your original work and people might just want to frame it. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this project today. I certainly did. This was super fun. And go ahead and click on the description. Everything you need is in there. The colors I've used, the paint I've used, the paper, my free class that's coming up, the link for that, and just everything that you need for this and for future projects. Thank you so much for painting with me, and I will see you in the next tutorial.